What if I told you your bad habits aren't accidents? What if they're not even problems? They're clues. Signals from the deepest part of your mind. You've been fighting them, punishing yourself for them, even hating yourself because of them. But Carl Jung would tell you you've been looking at it all wrong. Think about this. Every time you grab your phone when you're anxious, every time you stay up late, even though you're exhausted, every time you eat when you're not hungry, it's not weakness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's your unconscious speaking in a language you never learned to read. Today, we're going to decode that language. We're going to step into Jung's world and discover why your habits are not your enemy. They're your messengers. And by the end of this video, you'll never see them the same way again. Most of us believe the solution to bad habits is simple. Try harder. Be more disciplined. Set alarms, delete apps, throw away the cigarettes, swear to never touch the junk food again. And maybe for a day or a week it works. But then in your weakest moment, late at night, stressed, lonely, bored, the habit returns. And it doesn't just return quietly. It comes back stronger, almost laughing at your promises. Carl Jung would say this. Of course it does, because the habit was never the real problem. It was the mask. When you rely on willpower alone, you're fighting smoke instead of fire. You're grabbing at branches while the roots grow deeper. Think of someone who stops drinking but suddenly gains weight from overeating. Or someone who deletes Instagram but spends hours lost in YouTube instead. The habit changed costumes, but the actor stayed the same. Why? Because the real wound beneath the loneliness, the shame, the fear of failure was never addressed. Jung had a word for this hidden wound, the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It's the part of you you've buried, the anger you never expressed, the fears you never admitted, the desires you've been told are wrong. You push them away, pretend they don't exist. But the shadow doesn't disappear, it leaks out. And one of its favorite escape routes, your habits. That's why scrolling your phone isn't just scrolling. It's escaping silence. Overeating isn't just overeating. It's numbing emptiness. Procrastination isn't just laziness. It's shielding yourself from the terror of not being good enough. Now here's the shocking part. Jung believed your shadow wants to be seen. That's why it hijacks your habits. Because habits are the only language your unconscious has left when you refuse to listen. So when you fight a habit with pure discipline, you're basically gagging the messenger. You're shutting down the only part of you that's trying to communicate. And that's why willpower feels like running in circles, because the shadow will always find another way to speak. Let's imagine this. You're sitting at home after a long day. The house is quiet. Suddenly a wave of restlessness creeps in. Your mind says, just check your phone for a second. Before you know it, 30 minutes have vanished into scrolling. Or maybe you tell yourself you'll start studying at 8 p.m. But when the clock strikes 8, you feel a strange weight in your chest. The thought of opening that book feels unbearable. So you distract yourself, make food, clean your desk, anything but the actual task. Later you hate yourself for it. But in the moment, the avoidance feels safe. Carl Jung would say, this is not random. These are not bad habits. They're shadows in disguise. The shadow is Jung's word for the hidden side of your personality. It's everything you've decided doesn't belong in the good version of you. Maybe as a child you were told not to cry, so you pushed sadness away. Or maybe your anger scared people, so you buried it. Maybe your parents valued achievement, so you buried laziness and need for rest. But there's the paradox. The things you exile don't die. They wait. And when they get hungry enough, they sneak out through your habits. That late night scrolling. It's not about the scream. It's your loneliness crying for company. That overeating. It's not hunger. It's the shadow offering comfort for an ache you won't name. That procrastination. It's not laziness. It's fear of failure wearing a costume. Habits are masks. The shadow is the face beneath them. Now think about people who quit one habit only to pick up another. The smoker who stops but starts overing. The workaholic who slows down but drowns in video games. The cycle doesn't break because the root wound, the buried shadow, was never faced. That's why discipline feels like fighting smoke. With a sword, you're battling the symptom, not the source. And the shadow loves this game, because the more you fight the surface, the deeper it hides. Jung didn't say this to discourage us. He said it to free us. He believed the shadow is not evil. It's misunderstood. It's simply the parts of us that are desperate to be acknowledged. When you bury anger, it becomes explosive. When you bury fear, it becomes paralyzing. When you bury desire, it becomes obsession. But when you face the shadow, when you sit with it, admit it. Listen to it, the energy changes. It stops sneaking out through self-sabotage. Let me give you a story. A man worked late every night. He told himself it was ambition. But when he looked deeper, he realized he was avoiding going home to a failing marriage. Work wasn't the real addiction. It was a mask. The shadow beneath was fear of silence, fear of admitting love had died. The moment he faced that truth, the habit lost its grip. This is the shocking answer, Jungave. You can't break bad habits because they're not random. They're messages. They're your shadow asking to be heard. So the question becomes, if fighting them doesn't work, how do we respond to habits in a way that actually frees us instead of keeping us trapped? Carl Jung believed the unconscious doesn't speak in plain words. It speaks in symbols, dreams, slips of the tongue, patterns of behavior, and yes, habits. Your bad habit isn't just a random action. It's a living symbol. Stop, think about that for a second. Every time you bite your nails, binge watch shows, or keep putting off work, your unconscious is talking. It's saying something inside me needs attention. The problem is we've never learned how to read that language. We just judge ourselves instead. When you say, I'm weak, I'm lazy, I have no control, you're not listening. You're shaming the very part of you that's asking for help. Jung would say, don't attack the habit, watch it. Here's how. The next time you feel the pull of your habit, pause. Don't fight it immediately. Instead, ask, what happened right before this urge? Did you see something online that made you feel less than others? Did a memory flash in your mind? Did someone's comment sting you? These are not coincidences. These are the triggers that awaken the shadow in your habit. Whether it's scrolling, overeating, or procrastinating is the disguise it wears to survive. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you always procrastinate on big projects. On the surface, it looks like laziness. But if you slow down and observe, you might notice the urge hits right after you imagine failing. That's not procrastination. It's fear in costume. The shadow is whispering, if I never start, I can never fail. Or maybe you're someone who snaps at loved ones. It feels like anger out of nowhere. But watch closely. Maybe it happens right after you feel criticized or unseen. The shadow is shouting, please notice me, please respect me. But since it's buried, it leaks out as explosive anger instead. This is why Jung said, habits are not enemies, they're messengers. They're coded signals from the unconscious. If you decode them, you stop being their victim. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They think understanding the shadow means excusing the habit. Oh, I procrastinate because I'm afraid, so I'll just accept it. No, you never said accept this sabotage. He said accept the message. Once you know what the habit is protecting you from, you can meet that need honestly if scrolling gives you comfort. Find comfort in connection with a friend, a walk, even journaling. If overeating makes you feel safe, build real safety through routines, boundaries, or self-soothing that doesn't destroy your health. If procrastination shields you from failure, confront the fear directly. Break the task into tiny steps, so failure isn't catastrophic anymore. The K is this: replace the disguise with the truth. Give the shadow what it really needs instead of what the habit fakes. And here's the beautiful part. When you do this, the habit doesn't have to fight you anymore. It starts loosening on its own. Not because you crushed it with willpower, but because it's no longer carrying the weight it once did. This is the power of awareness. When you see your habit as a symbol, not a sin, you don't just gain control. You gain understanding. You realize you were never broken. You were just speaking the wrong language. But here's the challenge. Even when we decode the message, something inside us clings to the old identity. Why? Why hold on to habits that hurt us even when we know the truth? Here's the strangest part of human psychology. Sometimes we don't break our bad habits, not because we can't, but because deep down we don't want to. Now you might be thinking, that's crazy. Why would I ever want to stay stuck? But John would remind us the ego, the I you think you are, loves stability, even if that stability is toxic. Let me explain. Over time, your habit stops being just something you do and starts becoming part of who you are. You don't just say, I procrastinate. You say, I'm lazy. You don't just say, I overthink. You say, I'm an overthinker. You don't just say, I drink too much. You say, that's just who I am. See the danger? A habit slowly hardens into identity, and identities are heavy. They shape how you enter a room, how you talk to people, how you see your future. And once you fuse with a label, the unconscious will do everything it can to keep the story consistent, even if it destroys you. Why? Because to the ego, consistency feels safer than freedom. If your ego believes I'm the kind of person who always fails, you will unconsciously seek situations that confirm it. Not because you want to fail, but because it keeps the story intact. And your habits, they play the role perfectly. The procrastination, the anger, the addiction, they all become actors in a script you never stop performing. This is why so many people feel trapped, because the habit isn't just about comfort anymore. It's about protecting the identity. Imagine someone who's always been the shy one. Deep down, their shadow might be full of thoughts, opinions, even boldness. But letting go of shyness means stepping into a world without that anger. It's terrifying. Or think of the reckless one, without the thrill. Who are they? That's scarier than the habit itself. And here's the brutal truth. Most people would rather keep a painful identity than risk facing the unknown. But Jung's wisdom flips this completely. He said the first step to real change isn't discipline, it's disruption. Not fighting harder, but doing one small thing that doesn't fit your old role. If you've always been the quiet one, speak up once in a meeting. If you've always been the avoider, make that phone call you've been dreading. If you've always been the perfectionist, deliberately leave something imperfect. These small disruptions shake the ego just enough that it can't keep recycling the same script.